Welcome to Squirrel, the podcast for distracted writers, hosted by Candace J. Thomas and Jody L. Milner.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Squirrel. This is Candy.
And this is Jody.
And welcome to our episode 47, where, I don't even know what's going to happen this episode.
We did plan an episode. It just might go off the rails.
No, I call this your in-process process. Because as writers, we should have a process that we should follow in order to keep us, constantly motivated or producing books that just crank out of us. I'm sure that Joanna Penn has an amazing process, right? She probably gets up, does yoga. I don't know.
I think she talks about it at length in one of her episodes.
Yeah, if you talk to other writers, they have a specific process. If this is what they do for a living, I know that they have a process. I remember hearing about, Stephen King. In Stephen King's In Writing, he talks about his process.
He does. I thought his process was cool, where it's like he wakes up, he does 2,000 words in the morning, he goes on a nice long walk, and then he does editing in the afternoon and like any of the business stuff. And that's why he writes big books.
Big books.
Big books. And frequently.
Yes. So I was in a class recently, and the instructor, they mentioned that we should evolve as writers, and sometimes our process doesn't work, right? And I was talking to Jody about the fact that the way that I wrote before I was published is different than the way that I write now after being published. I think that's with anybody. You understand that. I do very much. You go through with a publisher, and with my publisher, once I was published, and we went through a very specific editing process, I started to understand their job as well as my job as the writer. And I had never actually considered that part. All I considered when I sold my stuff was they're going to rip my stuff apart.
Yep.
So, and they did.
That's their job.
It's to shred it and put it back together. It's not anything against your writing. They believed in my writing. They just knew that it needed shape. And I learned a lot from that process, the whole thing. So where I am now and why I'm bringing this up is my process is broken. Let's say that.
You're trying something new.
I'm experimenting a couple of things because my previous process is broken. Let me explain a little bit of this before we just throw into the questions that I presented. But my process is broken. I have a book that is not within the same realm of imagination that I'm used to, where I have to follow a specific structure. I'm doing a prequel to, it's not prequel, it's a book that follows the same timeline as my series.
It's a companion novel.
Yes. Yes, it is. It's a companion novel. I have specific scenes with this character, with all the characters that I need to include. Now, having that as part of the story that's already cemented is difficult. And I have to reinvent a process that's going to work for me. Because as a discovery writer, I like to explore the topics that are in my brain. And here I can't. I have to be creative, but I can't explore as much as I want to.
You have to work in a different playground than you have ever worked in before. It's called constraints. I am so sorry. And this is why this particular project...
I can't prance through the fields like I'm so used to.
And this project you've been trying to do for multiple years now. And you've been slamming your brain against it.
I came up with it 6 years ago, probably, or even longer. I started writing it 4 years ago, after I published To Dream in Daylight. And I have to rewrite everything that I wrote. But anyway, let's talk about process. So I asked you, when did you really start to figure out your own process? Because I kind of talked about mine, but what about yours?
3 books down, and I still don't feel like I've got a good one, but it's a functional one. Like, there was never a point that came in my writing career where it's like, oh, I need a process because I want to be doing this professionally and I want to be getting books out on a schedule, and therefore I must create this process. Would I make really high goals that I couldn't reach, and then would I beat myself up? Yeah, I did that plenty. But it was always this, I want to try this new thing because it works for this other person. You know, I want to try to dictate my novel. I want to try to write it without looking at the screen. I want it, like, all these different random ways of getting words on the page, or organizing the thoughts beforehand, or like how to approach the editing process. Like, I don't think I've done it the same way twice, which might be why I'm not moving as quickly as I would like to. And it's also probably why this current book is going to be super fun to edit because I know there are a lot of things broken, but I'm trying a different process with this one where I'm not allowed to go back and fix anything. Okay. I have to write the entire thing all the way through.
That's usually what I do, honestly, is just crank out to the end because I don't know how to fix anything until I know the ending.
And that's what I keep telling myself, because in my previous books, I've always been like, oh, I need to change this. Oh, I can't move forward until this is changed because it is going to affect all of these things that are between the thing I want to change and where I'm now. And that's why writing the book would take, instead of 2 or 3 months, it would take a year or a year and a half just to write a first draft.
Because you keep on going
Because I would go back and I'd go back and I'd go back. And now I'm like, that's not working well. And so now I'm trying to challenge myself to get all the way through to the end, no matter how many things that are broken. And it's getting into the dozens of things that I know are very broken, but I want to see how it ends. And then I think I'd be more efficient going back and being like, okay, now I can build all those things that I know are missing. Is it a good process? Probably not. Could I have done this more efficiently and pre-planned better? Absolutely. You keep on thinking I'm a meticulous outliner. I'm really not.
I will figure you have a beat sheet, honestly. Like that you have the entire arc planned out and these are the different beats that you have to hit. That's honestly what I think that you do.
And on this book, I'm using a 30 chapter beat sheet.
Okay, see,
but it's not. They're very loose. And so it's more like milestones along the way. And I know I'm going to have to fix most of them.
Okay. But that's a good guideline. That is a good line. I know exactly if anyone doesn't know what we're talking about. Explain the 30 beat or the 30-minute beats. It's like when you've written so much and you need to hit like a specific structure point of your story. Is that...
There's so many different story structures out there. This was one that was something I could install into Scrivener, and it would create all the cards. And it breaks up a story into the 30 most basic pieces that most books tend to hit. And then you hang your own story on that framework, and then you don't figure out, like, then when you get to the middle, you have a little bit of guidance because you're like, oh, I know something's supposed to happen here. And you can look on your cheat sheet and be like, oh, your main character needs to have a realization. And then you're like, oh, that's right. And you get a little bit more guidance instead of just writing fully into the dark. Mm-hmm. Like if you've done dozens of books, and yeah, clearly you don't need this because you kind of have it, ingrained already. You've already figured out what those pieces are and what flows naturally. But until you get to that point, it is nice having a little bit of support.
Mm-hmm. And what's hard about this project of mine is it doesn't follow that. Like I have to create those same beats within my cement foundation. And it's not working. I've got to figure it out. I got to figure out those specific markers in order for the story to flow better. So yeah. How do you define process?
Really? I feel like it's so tempting to formalize it, like have a really technical college level definition but I think it's any effort that takes your idea through all the different phases and the creative stages of like drafting and then editing and then getting feedback and blah, 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 until you get to a finished project.
Yeah, exactly. It's the function of organizing the story and how you as the creator need to work in order to get it right.
Yeah. And everyone's process is going to be wildly different. Your organization phase might not look anything like someone else's organization phase when you're figuring out, oh, I need these characters in these settings. You might not be figuring out those until you're actually on the page and like, I'm in this character and in this setting. I should probably figure them out.
So now when we're talking about broken processes, how have you tried to fix your broken pieces?
It used to be I was frustrated that I wasn't moving fast enough. And that's when I realized that doing these large loops was really creating problems. My problem right now is I want to draft a new book. Like my goal is 3 to 4 months. I want to draft a whole new book in 3 to 4 months, but I keep running into plot bunnies and plot problems, and I want to fix them, and I want to so bad, and it's actually causing me some anxiety because I know the problems are there, but I'm gleefully ignoring them. But I don't want to stop and go back because I know it slows me down. But I'm also solving a lot of these problems as I go, and so I think pushing through is making sense. So, like, my problem now is I know I'm introducing problems into the story, and I'm creating work for myself in the future. That's the problem. But it's also part of the solution because I'm solving those problems as I go as well. I'm giving myself the freedom to get to the end before I have to start over again.
Gotcha. I think my hardest problem right now is just the vision of the story. You know, and this could be my Brown Eyes work, but it also can be any of the other books that I have in my head. Is I need to visualize the story. That's why, you know, like a Pinterest board is really helpful because you can see it. You can see your characters. You can see the world that you're trying to create, of that kind of stuff. So in my story, I know exactly what it looks like in my head, but then I can't visualize it in front of me. So I've tried, I think this is why, you know, with storyboards might be really helpful. Like directors, they have a storyboard. They have to visually see exactly what they need to do. And even though it's going to take them a long time to carry out all of the different scenes, they need to have those in place. And so I've tried to do that. I tried to do that with Post-it notes. That didn't work very well. I'm now moved to note cards.
Oh, good.
I know. Like, that's going to be so different.
They don't lose their sticky.
I know. I watched some YouTube on process, and I saw this screenwriter who does everything in note cards, and then he fills out, you know, meticulous details of what he needs in the scenes, but then he moves them around to try to organize the story better. And so that's my next, I don't know. We'll see how that one goes. What about you? What do you think will be able to help?
I swear I've tried everything. I've tried plot lines in Excel. There is a plot line generator. Like, it doesn't generate your plot lines, but it gives you a timeline to hang your events on. I think it's called Aeon.
Find that for the blog.
I should. That would be amazing.
Okay.
I think I've done note cards in a 3-ring mini book, like trying to organize that way. And I'll start and I'll get excited and then I'll do it for a couple hours trying to figure out everything. And then I'll get bored of it and I'll abandon it and never look at it again. And so lately with Scrivener, I will put those like high level outline on the note cards in there because then I can't ignore them because they're going to show up whenever I open the next scene. They're like, remember, you're kind of aiming for this.
It's holding your brain.
It is holding my brain. Mm-hmm. It's like a little digital babysitter for myself, which is
maybe
helpful.
I should draft in Scrivener, which I never have done.
You can do the same idea in Word using headings because then they show up in the Finder.
Yeah, I do a navigation everything.
It's not Finder, that's Mac.
Everything is now like I have all of the. It is, I mean, it's heading, it's the title. So you put a specific title and you have your navigation on the side. And I always constantly have that up so I can flip through here and through here and through here. But I would like maybe the digital, hey, this is what's happening here. So that I might be able to follow it better than maybe see it visually more than just what I'm doing right now. I don't know.
And
we'll see.
Scrivener, there is a learning curve. And my first time I did a project with it, I got really frustrated.
Yeah, that's been my...
And I know a lot of people feel the same.
Yeah, I haven't really had a great experience.
Because there's a lot of bells
with
and whistles
Scrivener.
that you don't need to play with. I don't play with most of them. I play with the ones I understand.
Yeah, I'm really a word girl, I promise. It's Scrivener has been really hard for me, but I don't know. We'll see. I got to do something. I can't just continue to not... I got to try new stuff to see what works. So, okay. So now we'll move to our practical part, because I think it's unfair as you as the audience to not feel... You feel our woes, but not...
We need to give advice now.
We need to gravitate to, let's try to define process. It's not just about doing this and that. There are specific stages that you should take in your own specific process.
And these stages do not go in any particular order. Some make more sense to do earlier than later, but it's not a guideline. This is not a rigid outline you need to follow.
No, I feel that these just need to be stages completed. We are working on this specific stage. This is what you're doing at this moment type thing. That's what I'm thinking. So the first one I thought of was planning. There's a planning stage. In my definition, you get the creative idea that pops into your brain and you start to just wheel it out and try to figure out all the specific details. This is what I put as kind of planning. And planning, not just the creativity, but more organizing your life a bit. So if you are planning to write the novel, then you need to prepare time for this. You need to talk with your family. You need maybe a specific time that you need to write during the day, or just have planned space for writing when you're trying to do your planning stage. What do you put in as your planning stage?
Planning it feels like a very big box, because I didn't consider the organizing your life part until you mentioned that, but that's, it's super important. If you don't have any time to do any of these really huge plans you've got, then clearly you're not going to make progress, and then you can get really frustrated. So creating that space is important. But I think part of planning also is going to be capturing the heart of the story, capturing the main characters, and just figuring out the biggest bones of the project. And if you are a super planner kind of person, a plotter kind of person, this planning stage might include doing that very detailed outline, or finding a story structure that you can hang your ideas on, or finding at least the path of your story and getting that pinned down. If you're more of a pantser, it might just be coming up with an idea you're excited about, and then those key elements that you know you're going to use, and then letting yourself go wild.
Mm-hmm. That is absolutely true. Like, I will start all of a sudden with characters, build a basic summary of the story, then go and draw me a map and start with the government. I mean, or like with my contemporary stuff, I'm like, well, I'll need to figure out the maps of the metro line in New York City and things like that. So
the research phase could be rolled into planning, although I tend to stop and do research while drafting sometimes, and that also slows me down a lot, because then you get into the rabbit hole, and then next thing you know, you're learning how to carve like the beautiful etchings on knives.
That
was a really fun rabbit hole.
I bet. Okay, so the next stage I thought of was generating, and this generating might also be part of in the planning stage, but here, for me, in generating, it would be just understanding the mechanics of your world, knowing what your characters would do in a specific situation. I mean, really getting down to the stage where you can and this is again for me, so I can let my imagination take over. So I need to know my characters well enough, my world well enough, my magic, all that stuff. I need to know that in order to place them in a situation and let them go and figure it out. That's generating for me. What about you?
I want to take it super literally, but that's my literal brain just leaping out. Where generating
You're popping out the words.
Actual creation of the text. I have tried to create, like, do the character worksheets before starting. I can't remember a thing I put on them. I'm like, I know I made these decisions, but it didn't gel into a person. It didn't gel into a character. And so I actually need to play with them on the text and just have them go through situations before I'm like, oh yeah, I think this character is kind of like this. And then I know I'm going to need to edit heavily because that's
because
part
the
of my
character
process.
now has changed from the first chapters.
Oh yeah, and consistency is important.
All right, well, so let's go to the organization stage. What does your organization look like?
I did mention Scrivener before, and I will mention it again. Having one place that keeps everything is pretty important, and having a system behind that organization that makes sense to you is also really important, because if you're like writing a scene on a notebook and then doing one on your phone and then doing another on your computer and then saving them with all sorts of different names, and then you come back and you're 30 scenes in and you don't remember what goes where and in what order, you're going to be kicking yourself a lot.
Mm-hmm. I do the same kind of thing, but it's in Google Drive so that because I can access that anywhere. I also have Dropbox, but that's more for my editing or my publishing side, where I will keep those bigger attachments in a different place where other people can find them. But when I'm creating a story, I do use Drive and Word. But Drive holds all of my story ideas, my plot lines, my Excel, my spreadsheets, any images that I have. I'll have links on a page so I'll automatically go to here and there, so I can constantly reference them if I need that.
Yeah, and Scrivener does all that, and there is a mobile version that's supposed to be able to talk to your desktop version. Have I figured that out? No, I have not. Should I? Absolutely.
Probably.
Not today, though.
Yeah, because I can access my Drive anywhere, and that's been extremely helpful. But I do like to write in Word. As I said, I like the navigation tools, but I can keep my draft in Drive, so I can write just there on like Microsoft Online.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my organization. Okay. What about discovery stage? What do you do to discover your story as part of your process? That's the question.
This goes back to plotting and pantsing again. Some people, I think, roll this discovery stage into their planning phase, where they're taking the time to figure out their characters, and they're taking the time to figure out their plot and their settings and all of that. And then you have your pantsers who they're diving in, and part of the joy of the writing itself is letting these random ideas just pop into your head and appear on the page and just see what happens. And so for me, my discovery mostly happens while I'm writing, where all of a sudden I'm like, oh wait, what does this place actually look like? And I start thinking, what's the coolest thing I could do right now? And then do that, and then have someone tell me that looks really stupid, try again. But
I'm the same, though.
Just letting it happen organically, and then going back and adjusting and tweaking until it meshes. I mean, editing forever. If you guys can write a perfect story in one draft, good on you.
Who's that person?
But it's not a thing.
No, I mean, with my discovery, yeah, I like to find out the quirks. I like to find their charms in my characters. Since my stories are always so character driven, that's what drives me, is finding those little idiosyncrasies that makes up the character. Yeah, and discovery is like my very favorite part. But I feel it's an important part of the process, but where it fits, I'm not sure, because it should just come. It is part of writing, just spilling out your fingers. So I don't know. Yes, it needs to be a process. Okay, next one I have is inspiration. How do you find inspiration during your process? During your process, not specifically actively writing.
Well, and I'm defining this as, how do you recharge your creative batteries?
Yes, that's it.
Because creating story is a lot of brain work. And it can be quite draining, especially if you're doing emotional stuff. Like, I find that if I'm doing a really emotional scene, that I am kind of dead afterwards. And so I like to recharge.
Yeah, that's why my last in my series was so hard to write, because so many people died. And that was really hard to write all of that.
It's weirdly exhausting in a way you just can't explain to anyone. They're like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I killed a character. They're like, what are you talking about? Like, I can't tell you. Spoilers.
Yeah. And this is where I'm stuck right now, is just finding that inspiration, finding that what's going to work for me, how to recharge.
Well, and also battery. If you could get drained to the point where, like, as you're working, those creative sparks, those random ideas that really work for the story, like, they'll happen less and less, because the more tired you are, mentally or physically, the less likely your brain's going to make these cool connections between what's happening in your brain and what's happening on the keyboard. So, like, for me, taking a walk in the morning where I don't have my phone, and I walk for a mile, and I just let my brain kind of discharge all the random weird energy it's picked up. And if there's things, there's like, oh yeah, pick up the groceries, or yeah, get the prescription. Like, I will jot down those things and just clear my brain and just kind of do a mental flush. And then if I'm tired in the afternoons and I have the luxury of doing so, I will pick up a book to read, where I can see how someone else has been successful and having cool ideas. And if I see something where it's just like, ooh, I forgot that trope was a thing. I like that trope. How can I make it unique and cool for me? And plug it in perhaps on a different part of my story. Like, there's all sorts of things out there that people can try. Movies are amazing. It is effort-free storytelling where you can sit back and just absorb.
I mean, but I don't get much energy from movies.
Well, I don't get energy, but I do get entertained, and remembering that storytelling should be joyful and impactful.
That's true.
And powerful. There's no stronger place to see that when you have a movie that has beautiful music and characters in these elaborate costumes and these settings that are incredible. Like, seeing all the pieces come together is...
Yeah, it also can be emotionally draining.
It can
watching those things. So I guess pick your movie,
Well, I mean, don't watch The Notebook.
Don't watch Oppenheimer.
Don't watch choose something that you feel is going to
help inspire you.
Like, if you just need to laugh, watch something funny. If you need something that's kind of a family drama because, that brings you a certain sense of satisfaction, like, they're screwed up, I'm not, it's great.
Okay.
I mean,
I'll roll with
whatever
that.
scratches your itch.
I know you mentioned that, though. I think in what really inspires me, though, is talking with people. I love people. And especially when we have a specific history. I mean, when I get around, like, my high school friends or my other writer friends, there's a specific energy that I feel that's not the same with my family. Like, this is all just joyful, play here. There's nothing for me. This is
Says the extrovert.
Yes, I get,
which is
why
I get recharged with movies.
Oh, and walking outside and being by yourself
and being around people is draining.
Yeah, no, I love talking to people, and if I talk about my story to other people, they might be able to help me, organize my thoughts a little bit better. So for me, that's that. Wow, we are so different. We are so different.
Which is why we work together so well.
And the last stage that I could think of was physical and mental conditioning, which we kind of just mentioned. But do you have any specifics on that?
I have to do my work in the morning before I get bogged down with life, the universe, and everything. And so part of my mental conditioning is that I show up to work as soon as my kids are off to school. I do have, I wouldn't say luxury, but I do feel privileged in the way that I can do that. If I had to do a job, I would have to find an entirely different way of managing my time and my energy to still find that creative time effectively.
Yeah.
but I
hard.
do feel very lucky, and I'm very grateful to, my hubby for making that possible.
Yeah, there is a lot of, but going back to organizations, there's also a lot of respect. We've talked about this in other episodes, where respecting each other's creative wants and needs, that's really important to help create a conducive environment for you to be able to be inspired to write. So yeah, that's an important stage.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was at a conference where I got to be up on the panel, and we were talking about how do you invite the muse? How do you get into the mood to be able to write? And these lovely people on the panel are like, oh yes, I take a bath, and then I light a candle, and then I get my favorite drink, and then I go on a walk.
Who are these people?
And I'm just like, you're single, aren't you?
I know, right?
And I'm just like, no shade there, because if you have the luxury of doing that and part of your process, and you're still able to get the work done, even though your ritual to get started takes 2 hours, and I get all my writing done in less than an hour and a half, like, do I want to have a ritual like that? Maybe.
We've learned time management because we only have so much
stuff
time.
to do. And there was like 3 of them, and then I'm like, all of you moms in the crowd right now know that that's not normal. Most people have multiple things they're trying to manage: households, jobs, kids, aging parents. Like the list can go forever. And when you can make time for you, great. Don't think you have to have a ritual. Just showing up and writing for 15 minutes. That is process. That is getting some work done.
Yes. That's awesome.
It's not a super efficient process, and it's going to be really frustrating, but you can do it.
Oh my gosh. All right. So closing thoughts. If you get stuck, this might be a really good place to start, is just to start thinking about the process that might work for you, and
consider what phase you might be more likely to be in. You might not be ready to sit down and generate text.
True.
But you might be ready to organize your life a little bit better. You might be ready to open up a document and start jotting down your character ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But be very aware of, what you need in any phase you are in your life. I just stepped right over your closing thoughts.
Oh, I'm done. I was done with my closing thoughts.
Oh, good, because I would feel very bad if I had done that.
No. I thought you just went right into yours, because I don't really have. That's it.
Well, and so some people might make it sound like there is a right way to do this. There is no right way to do this. Your process is going to change. It'll change in big ways.
Going to need to.
It'll change in small ways. You will find things that work better for you the more you work. You might find things that are helpful for one project are really distracting for another project. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to shift and change your approach. It is okay to try new things.
It's okay to outline a bit.
It is okay to outline. I outline.
I have to outline right now.
Just not a lot.
That's just where we are. And that's what I realized when I was at this class going, I need to rethink my entire way that I'm doing this. So, yep. There you go.
And if all else fails, life is messy. Miss Frizzle it.
Miss Frizzle it. Very good. Okay.
Once we finalize the design, there might be a t-shirt coming with that.
There definitely will be a really great t-shirt. Okay. Thank you, Jody.
This was informative and interesting and long-winded.
Yeah, I know that this one went a little bit longer than 20 minutes.
We have a lot to say.
Okay, what do we got next?
We are going to be talking about improving your craft through education and where you can get education, as most of our listeners are adults. Where to find places to learn more.
Good. Okay. I got lots of ideas for that.
It's going to be good.
Okay, very good.
All right. If you've heard anything today that you have enjoyed or you have found insightful, please remember we have a Patreon and a Buy Us a Coffee. A little tippy tip in our tippy jar does make us quite happy and keeps our lights on.
It keeps the electricity.
If you haven't liked or subscribed on your platform of choice, this is a perfect moment to do so unless you're driving.
And share. You should share. Share with everyone. Share with the world.
We like sharing.
Okay.
This has been terrific. Thank you, Candy.
Thanks, Jared.
Thank you for listening to the Squirrel Podcast for the Distracted Writer with Candace J. Thomas and Jody L. Milner. Please like and subscribe to our podcast for updates and new episodes. And find more information at our website, squirrelpodcast.com. Stay distracted, everyone.
Your brain's going to make these cool connections between what's happening in your brain and what's happening on your, between your fingers. What's happening on the keyboard.
PGG.
We will be editing that.